Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, CRABOMINABLE. CRABOMINABLE is a fighting and ice-type Pokemon with the moveset of Bubble, Ice Punch, and Crab Hammer. At first glance, the moveset honestly doesn't seem too bad, but not getting same type attack bonus on Bubble and Crab Hammer definitely hurts. On top of that, CRABOMINABLE is extremely glassy, so getting wins with this thing is going to be a tall task. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and test out CRABOMINABLE in action in the Remix Cup. Hopping into the first match, picking up a tough lead, Mantine into normal cast form. Normal cast form can of course learn Rock-type Weather Ball, so I will need to save switch out of this matchup into CRABOMINABLE. CRABOMINABLE is going to take neutral damage from the Weather Ball here, so Weather Ball is not going to one-shot. I'm going to let that through. Even a neutral Weather Ball does so much damage, and my opponent is going to send an Escav. I'll fire off the Crab Hammer. That does quite a bit of damage, but CRABOMINABLE just has absolutely no bulk and gets countered down. This will set up a very nice farm for Mantine though, and Mantine with energy can be extremely deadly. Escav fires off the Acid Spray. I am able to get the farm down, and my opponent is actually waiting their clock here, which is quite nice for me, because that means my timer is going to be up. They bring back in cast form, immediate switch into Diggersby. They're going to fire off a charge move. I'm going to let this through. Cast form goes for the energy ball. That hits for super effective damage. And in the back, they have Knocked Owl. Our switch clocks are slightly misaligned, and I need to take advantage of that fact if I have a chance to win this game. So I'm just going to spam out as many fire punches as possible with Diggersby, getting some chip damage, but more importantly, stalling out the timer. My opponent continues to farm, and I'm able to reach a third fire punch. This Knocked Owl is absolutely loaded up on energy. They will fire off a Sky Attack. Sky Attack is not going to be lethal from this range, so I'm going to let this through, switch into Mantine, and bait with a Bubble Beam. Ice Beam would of course be lethal here. I'm hoping my opponent shields, and they do. That is massive. This means I'm going to be taking less damage from their next attack, and on top of that, it's now faster to get to my Ice Beam. Mantine able to get to the Ice Beam. Are they willing to give up the final shield here? Ice Beam takes out the Knocked Owl, and I have a chance. Back in comes the cast form. Cast form, firing off a charge move. Decision time. I will elect to shield up the Mantine and continue to farm. Mantine is going to go for the Ice Beam. Ice Beam will hit for some solid neutral damage here. Ice Beam is going to grab a shield from the cast form. Cast form continues to farm up here. I will commit the final shield because I should be able to outpace and make the Ice Beam here. Mantine gets to the Ice Beam, and they now have enough energy for a charge move here. Ice Beam, barely not enough to KO. Switch and the catch onto Diggersby, and that is going to seal this game. Mantine farms down the cast form, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up a neutral lead, Mantine into Shadow Granbull. I will stay in this matchup to start. You know what? I'm going to full send the Ice Beam. I'm hoping my opponent is going to try and call a Bubble Beam in this matchup. Ice Beam is going to get the shield. Opponent is going to save switch into his Hisuian Electrode, and I will respond with my Diggersby. Diggersby is of course going to be taking super effective damage from the energy ball, so I will shield up their first charge move. Unfortunately, they're not quite in a range where double fire punch will KO. I will fire off the first here, and as you're going to see, a second fire punch is not going to be lethal. Electrode is going to be able to live this and make it to a second energy ball. Energy ball, of course, while not being lethal, is going to be doing quite a lot of damage to Diggersby. Energy ball is able to land, and I do get the farm down. Back in comes Shadow Granbull looking for the farm. I'm only reaching one charge move, so I am going to be full sending the Earthquake. Earthquake gets the shield, and now I have to send in Mantine. I do not want to take Shadow Charms on my fighting type, CRABOMINABLE. I will shield up. It is the Crunch. We'll have to see what they have in the back, and it's a Regirock. If they don't have Focus Blast, which it looks like they don't, I may actually be able to win this. Have we found a positive matchup for CRABOMINABLE? It seems impossible, but CRABOMINABLE is going to be firing off this Crab Hammer. Crab Hammer, massive damage onto the Regirock. Regirock will reach a charge move, so CRABOMINABLE still not able to win the matchup, but I will be able to win the game. Mantine wing attacks down the Rock type and leaves with the Ice Beam loaded. Ice Beam will be more than enough to take down the Granbull. Picking up a pretty nice lead in the next match, Mantine into Noctowl. This matchup is one of the many reasons why I do like Mantine compared to running something like Pelipper, because Mantine can hit Noctowl for super effective damage. I'm going to go for the Ice Beam right off the bat. Let's see if they want a shield. My opponent does commit the shield on the CMP tie. I will let this through. They're going to be firing off a Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball will hit for neutral damage. I'm going to continue to farm up here. They'll fire off a charge move just before I get there. I'll let this go. My opponent goes for the Sky Attack. I fire off the last second Ice Beam, but my opponent anticipates my play and makes a beautiful catch onto their Empoleon. Empoleon, definitely an uncomfortable Pokemon for this team to see. I don't really want to keep my Diggersby alive because then Noctowl is going to be able to crush it. So my plan is to get the Diggersby as low as possible and then fire off the last second Earthquake to take care of the Empoleon here. Earthquake gets shielded, and suddenly my plan has gone awry, and now I have to rely on 2 shield Crabominable to try and sweep. And I can have all the shields in the world, but as you see, these waterfalls just do so much neutral damage. A boost would be really helpful here. I'm going to fire off the Crabhammer. Crabhammer is enough to KO, but I do not get the boost. That is not great. Opponent is going to send in Galvantula. I farm up, switch, and I'm able to catch their move onto Mantine. That is big. The question is, are they in Crabhammer range here? I'm going to fire off the Crabhammer. I really need this to KO. Crabhammer does not KO. Galv able to hang on. Noctowl farms down Crabominable, and that is a good game. Off a lead in the next match, Mantine into Unova Stunfisk. I save switch into Crabominable, and my opponent responds with Haxorus. This Crab runs Bubble, so I'm hoping they don't know about Ice Punch. Ice Punch one-shots the Haxorus, and just like that, Crabominable is able to take switch advantage. I'm not out of the woods yet, though, because they have Aurorus in the back, and honestly, my team is very, very weak to Aurorus. I'll go straight for the Crabhammer. Crabhammer does get shielded, and my opponent will fire off their charge move right away. I let this go. They full send the Meteor Beam, and now they are boosted. I'm going to send in Mantine, so at the very least, they're forced to go for another Meteor Beam. And I'm going to begin to fire off these Bubble Beams. Bubble Beam will hit for super effective damage and will lower their attack back down to normal, which is quite nice. I'm going to let this go. I'm just going to trust in Diggersby to win this game. My opponent fires off the Meteor Beam, raising their attack once again. The thing I do have to watch for is a potential catch. If they try and go for a catch, which they are going to do right here, I should basically have the game won. The reason being is I can massively overfarm on energy versus the Stunfisk. I'll go for the Earthquake here, and then after I land the Earthquake, I can fully Mudshot farm down and leave with enough energy to get rid of the Aurorus. Earthquake is going to connect and do massive damage to the Stunfisk, and I'm just going to save my shield for the charge move from Aurorus. I'm not shielding a thing here. I get the farm down, and I leave with double Fire Punch loaded. Fire Punch is only neutral into Aurorus, but I'm hoping that Fire Punch is going to be enough here. I will fire off Fire Punch number 2, really hoping this is going to be enough to KO. Aurorus able to hang on. This is bad, but I do get the Mudshot through, so all I have to do is commit the shield. The Mudshot KOs, and we secure the win. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Mantine into Toxicroak. My opponent will immediately save switch into Pelipper, and honestly, I need to stay in this matchup. My backline gets absolutely shredded by Pelipper, so I need Mantine to put in work here. I'll fire off the early Bubble Beam. They let it go, but honestly, it's the debuff that I'm after. That will allow me to tank the Hurricane more comfortably, but this Pelipper is actually running Blizzard as a surprise nuke. Now, I am going to full send the Ice Beam here. My opponent is going to commit the shield, and that is a bit scary. I will farm up, try and go for another Bubble Beam, but I end up losing CMP. That's a bit awkward for sure. This Weather Ball is barely enough to KO, and I'm going to send in Crabominable. I'm really hoping that I'm going to be able to double shield and farm down, because if I can leave with a lot of energy loaded, I should be in a pretty decent spot, but they have a lot of energy as well, and suddenly I'm realizing that I may not be able to farm down. I'm going to try and go for it. Crabominable, not enough to KO, and they reach a last second Weather Ball here. This Weather Ball barely doesn't KO. I bring in Diggersby, trying to go for the Mudshot down, but Pelipper is just too strong, able to reach one final Weather Ball, surviving the double resistant Mudshots. In the back, they have Emolga. Earthquake is single resisted, but it's a lot stronger of a move than Fire Punch, so I am going to fire off the Earthquake. That's able to connect. Emolga continues to farm. I have no shields remaining, so I just have to tank this damage. They go for the Aerial Ace. Fortunately, Aerial Ace, pretty bad move, so I'm able to tank that and fire off Earthquake number 2. Earthquake is going to KO Emolga. Back in comes Toxicroak. If I can get a shield with a Fire Punch, hopefully I can one-shot with a Crab Hammer here. Fire Punch gets no shielded. I switch in Crabominable. I have 2 Ice Punches loaded, but unfortunately, the counter does go through. I lose the energy, and I lose the game. Moving into the next match, leading Mantine into Pidgeot. Again, I'm very happy to catch the flying type on the lead, as my backline does not appreciate seeing Pidgeot whatsoever. I go for the Ice Beam, but I do lose CMP. I'm going to let the first move through. It is just a Feather Dance. Feather Dance will, of course, debuff my attack, but it does basically no damage. I fire off the Ice Beam. Even when debuffed, that Ice Beam does a ton of damage. I'm just going to continue to farm up here. They're going to fire off another charge move, and you know what? I'm going to let this go. My opponent goes for another Feather Dance. That is fine by me. They save switch into Politoed, and I have absolutely no response to a Politoed save switch. I send in Crabominable, but Crabominable can only hit for resisted while taking neutral damage in return. So Crabominable is going to get absolutely crushed here. My opponent is running Surf on Politoed. Surf, I believe, does have slightly better DPE after the Weather Ball nerf. 2 Surfs is going to KO, and I'm going to send in Diggersby here. I should be able to tank 1 and then reach the Earthquake. But unfortunately, at this point, my opponent should recognize how weak I am to Politoed, so they're probably going to be shielding this. I will fire off the Earthquake, hoping against hope that they let it through, but they commit the shield. That is not great. The nice thing is, I'm able to make a catch onto Mantine. Mantine is able to absorb that Surf, no problem, and Mantine is going to return fire with Ice Beam. Ice Beam is resisted, but it will do some solid chip damage onto the Politoed, getting them low. Politoed continues to farm. They'll fire off one final charge move, and I'll commit the shield. I need the ability to reset a debuff, because Pidgeot, of course, can debuff with Feather Dance. They send back in the Pidgeot. I'm firing off the Bubble Beam. Bubble Beam gets shielded. Mantine reaches the last second Bubble Beam. Is this going to be enough to KO? It would be massive if it did, and it does. In the back, they have Steelix, and this game should be won. Steelix will fire off the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs not going to be doing a ton of damage, so I'm actually going to save my shield on Diggersby and make it to the Earthquake. Earthquake is going to be getting them deep into the red, and from here, all I have to do is survive the Dragon Tails and reach a final charge move. This Fire Punch will be safely taking out the Steelix, and that is a good game. Moving into the next match, and we have a bit of a late start in this match, as we see Mantine into Unova Stunfisk. I save switch into Crabominable, and I am met with Vigoroth. This was the first match that I tried with the Pokemon, and I was actually trying Payback to start. Now, Payback does have some interesting coverage. I mean, either way, both Crabhammer and Payback don't get same type attack bonus, but ultimately decided on Crabhammer just for the boost chance. I'm going to send in Mantine. I was able to get shield advantage from the CMP tie, which is quite nice. Vigoroth is going to be firing off a Body Slam. I'll tank that and return fire with the Ice Beam. Ice Beam will do quite a bit of damage if it connects, which it does, getting the Vigoroth deep into the red. Vigoroth is going to continue to farm, firing off Body Slam number 2. I will try and make it to a Bubble Beam here, because I really need to get rid of this Vigoroth, if at all possible. I am putting all of my trust in this match into my Diggersby. I send in Diggersby, it's Noctowl in the back, and I concede the match. Hopping into the final match, leading Mantine into another Noctowl. As before, I am going to stay in this matchup and play it out. Although this time, I think I'm going to try going for a Bubble Beam first. My opponent is running an attack-weighted Noctowl, so I actually do lose CMP. They go for the Shadow Ball, and since it's CMP, I'm not able to switch to an Ice Beam, so I'm forced to fire off a Bubble Beam. My opponent is going to let that through. That's a little unfortunate. I will be able to reach the Ice Beam, though, and this Ice Beam is going to get them low. My opponent is going to let that through. I throw one, switch, and catch what I'm hoping is a Shadow Ball onto Diggersby. And it is. Let's go. My opponent is going to respond with Hisuian Electrode, and if this is their best response to a Diggersby, they must be absurdly weak to Diggersby in the back. Granted, Hisuian Electrode can hit for super effective damage with Energy Ball, but still, they are doing absolutely nothing in terms of fast move pressure. I go for the Fire Punch. That is able to land. I'm going to overfarm, fire off another Fire Punch here. Decision time for my opponent. They're going to commit a shield. They really, really want to try and land an Energy Ball here. I will commit the shield. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to outpace here. At this point, honestly, I had lost track of Electrode's energy, so I'm basically just hoping that I'm going to be able to outpace. I go for the Fire Punch. That gets the shield. go for another Fire Punch, but I lose CMP, and this is not ideal. This energy ball is going to hurt, getting me into the red health. I will fire off the Fire Punch, and then we'll see what my opponent does have in the back here. And they have Magcargo. Magcargo farming up. They bring in Noctowl. I bank the Quake, and I send in CRABOMINABLE. My opponent will reach a last-second Sky Attack. Surely I can survive from almost full health. Nope, CRABOMINABLE is too glassy. Back in comes Magcargo, but I have the Earthquake loaded. This is double super effective damage. Easily taken out Magcargo, and that is a good game. All in all, while CRABOMINABLE can do some nice damage, it's pretty bad typing, and lack of same type attack bonus on Bubble really holds it back from any kind of relevance. So, while it can be a cool Pokemon to collect for your decks, in terms of PvP, I would not recommend building it whatsoever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.